can someone please mute, because I don't really want to hear your background conversation, please. It's either Tom or it's Philip. You're one of you, two of you. Anyway, so I would like to propose or appoint Councillor Brindley to the catering partnership vacancy. As we did on, I think it was leisure, we didn't need to go to a vote. That's correct, isn't it, Deborah? You're muted.
Yes, it's a place for a Conservative member of the council.
Okay, so well done, Charlie. You're back on the partnership. So item 6, minutes of the meeting held on September 15th of September. We need to approve them. Can I ask if there's any questions? They were provided in the full council agenda of the 29th of September. I would like to go straight to the vote on approval, if that's okay with everyone. If it is, please can you raise your hands now?
Okay, that's 6.
Thank you. Can I Kevin, can you take all the names? Thank you. Anyone who is against, please raise their hand now.
None.
None. And if anybody wishes to abstain, can they please raise their hand now? Okay.
None.
So, thank you. So they've approved. Item 7, minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on 27th of October. That's page 6. Again, I would like, unless the committee members want to comment.
Councillor McCann has his hand up, Chair.
Okay, Councillor McCann, please. Councillor McCann.
Yeah, it's the difference between getting back to demiking yourself and you cantering through the agenda. I was actually trying to abstain on the last vote, but you cantered so quickly through I couldn't get to my item to raise my hand to say before you'd moved on, Chair. So if you wouldn't mind just slowing that bit down a bit, give us half a chance, because that would be nice. Thank you.
Okay, I actually thought I saw your hand go up, but obviously I was wrong.
It was like that.
Okay, I will slow it. I will slow it down. You know.
Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor
Chadwick.
Yes, I just wanted to say that in the agenda it says it's the extraordinary meeting held on the 27th of October on page 6, but on page 6 it's the extraordinary meeting on the 27th of September.
Good catch. Just waiting for Deborah to clarify.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, is
it September or October?
Oh, I think it's October.
It's October.
It's
Right.
October.
So we will amend accordingly. So apart from that minor change, a month, can I go straight to the vote? If there's no other comments or questions, can you please raise your hand if you approve? Councillor Gilder's raising her hand, Linda.
Okay.
All right, and clearly Councillor McCann hasn't. So can you take all the hands down, please, Kevin? Thank you. All those against, please show. And it's clear Councillor McCann is not. So all those abstaining, please show. And Councillor McCann's hand goes up.
That's 1.
Okay, thank you. So those minutes have been approved. Thank you very much. Finance, section 8. Budgetary control to receive report SR 2220 on page 10. That's 7, sorry. Over to you, Deborah, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. In terms of expenditure, you can see that all but two of the budgets are under 58%, affiliation fees and capital loans and budgets.
Chairman, I'm sorry, but I had my hand up for another item before this one.
Okay, I didn't see it. What's the other
Sorry,
item?
I want to put a motion without notice under Standing Order 13, 9. No, sorry, yeah, 9. To appoint a committee or subcommittee or any councillors, including substitutes thereto.
To what purpose?
I'd like, there's a motion before you. I'd like Kevin to share his screen now to show you the motion. And as soon as you can see it, Chairman, I'd like to speak.
Okay, can anybody see that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it okay for me to speak, Chairman?
yes, can I just check, Deborah, how long does Councillor Rowland have to speak?
I think it's 5 minutes.
Okay,
I won't be 5 minutes. I'm very aware we've got a full agenda. I will be brief.
well,
Do you want me to read the motion out? Are you happy to read it?
is anybody needing it read out, or can we just take a minute for people to read it and absorb?
Yep.
Can we now move, Councillor Rowland, will you please speak to it? Do you have a seconder, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, surprise, surprise. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Rowland.
Thank you. I was first elected to this council in the early 1990s when we, the Liberal Democrats, were in control, and much of what we achieved has been continued by the current administration. The council has provided services for the residents of Woodley for many years, with a continuous history of growth and renewal achieved by both political parties. Then came COVID. Our world changed almost overnight, but more importantly to us as a council, all of our services and therefore our income stopped overnight. This is no one's fault, but we do need as a council to deal with it. How many councillors are in the know about the current situation, as the committee that deals with finances, that's S&R, has not met really between the 21st of January and the 15th of September, plus one ordinary meeting. The S&R committee has not received sufficient information regarding the council's current financial position, nor had any opportunity to input how it is being handled until tonight. In place of this, the urgency committee, which under standing orders can be set up to meet and deal with items that are urgent, that is, they can't wait, has taken the responsibility. The urgency committee have met behind closed doors with no other councillor allowed to attend or take part or observe. They have planned regular meetings. That very fact says to me that the matters discussed are not urgent. You cannot plan an urgent problem. That the council has financial problems is not a secret. Indeed, the administration carried out a consultation on what precept the public would find acceptable in the coming round of budget planning. So why not have meetings of the Strategy and Resources Committee? They could have been held, which would have been open and honest and should have been the way forward. I ask you to support this motion as not only the correct way forward, but the most honest and open way to deal with this matter. Thank you, Chairman.
So Deborah, process-wise, what is the position of the seconder? Are they allowed to speak now, or
Yes.
Or they can reserve their right to
or they-
speak until
so?
the
Are
end.
you speaking now, or are you going to reserve your right?
Sorry, can you take the thing off the screens now, because I can't really see members anymore. Okay,
Chair,
thank you.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. Can I just make a quick suggestion? I've had a comment from an attendee that perhaps if we could read out the motion for anyone who's trying to follow the meeting, perhaps on YouTube, who's visually impaired, to actually hear the motion.
Okay, and I think it should stay on the screen while we discuss it and debate it as well. So, Deborah, do you want to read out? Can we have it back on the screen? And Deborah, can you read it out, or do you want me to?
If I can get that out of the way, I can. Right, this is a motion to Strategy and Resources Committee, 24th of November 2020. This motion proposes the setting up of a financial review subcommittee reporting to this committee, and according to Standing Order 7A, all members will be sent the notice of meeting. This would address the present lack of information and accountability concerning ongoing pandemic-related financial issues, which are being discussed by the Urgency Committee behind closed doors. Using the subcommittee to address these important matters would allow the most qualified councillors available to participate and ensure public scrutiny of the financial process, protecting the credibility of the council's decision-making process. Necessary confidential actions would still be addressed using Part 2 arrangements. Actually, that should read confidential arrangements, but it's fine.
Kevin, can you possibly contact, I guess it's Jack, that was satisfactory for him?
Well, if he lets me speak, this is the issue. He's not letting people speak.
Councillor Doyle, much as we like to hear your conversation on the phone, thank you. Kevin, are you just finding?
Sorry, Chair. The suggestion was from Councillor Al-Sanjari, actually, who's an attendee, but of course there might be people watching on YouTube who are unable to.
Okay, right. So Councillor McCann, I guess Councillor McCann has 5 minutes as well, Deborah?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Before we move into my 5 minutes, can I ask, is there any other indications on people wishing to speak?
No,
Chair?
sorry,
That's
Chairman,
okay.
that's the Chairman's role. Please, can you speak as the seconder?
I simply asked the question when anyone
please,
else going to speak.
Sorry, Councillor McCann, I've asked you to speak as a seconder, not ask questions.
Okay.
Councillor McCann, stop being rude.
Not rude.
I'm warning you that if you continue like this, steps will be taken. So can you please speak as a seconder and behave as a councillor should behave?
Am I allowed to speak now? Do I have your
I'm
permission
waiting
to
for
speak?
you, please.
Well, good. If you be quiet, then I can speak. Okay. I asked at the original meeting that agreed to set up the urgency committee that we review and examine the fact that members of the public would not have access to this information. Members of the Lib Dem group have raised concerns individually and collectively to the leader of the council and to its officers within the council. We feel very strongly that it was completely inappropriate and unnecessary to make these secret meetings non-diaried but regular. It is against the code of practice which I have circulated to the clerk, saying items 4, 3, 4 is contrary to 3, 4 and 5 of the government's code of practice. It is against your standing orders, number 29A. It is even if it is breaking those rules, it is just not good democracy to hide this sort of information away. It is in the public's money. It is the public's right to have access to this information, irrespective of whether the leading group are embarrassed or irrespective if they're trying to hide something. It should be and must be made public. I'll raise members' particular attention to item 29 on your standing orders, that by doing so, this urgency subcommittee is actually in direct breach of that which specifically allows members to inspect all and every document that this council has access to. And whether you intend to, it is actually precluding and excluding elected members of the Labour Party, elected members of the Lib Dem group, and probably some Conservatives as well. It is not appropriate for this council to act in this way anymore. The first meeting, I understand. Second meeting, I do understand. But from here on in, there is no reason to do this. There is nothing to hide. And if you do continue to make it a secret meeting, you are going against the Code of Conduct, items 3, 4, and 5, and contrary to a statutory regulation in your own standing orders, 29A. You may end up painting yourself into a corner where your decisions may be declared ultra vires because you're acting inappropriately. We're trying to help you hereby. We would normally have supported the ruling group in this moment of financial distress within the council. It affects everybody, it affects our entire community. We are not trying to be political. We're trying to say to you, for crying out loud, why don't you let the public know what's going on? We could be £500,000 worse off, according to the leader of the council's own publicly announced figures. You've gone out to the public and you've told them that, and you're still having secret meetings behind closed doors, excluding members of the council right of access to documentation that the law says they have a right not just to ask for, to demand. You're refusing that. This is shocking. This is a really serious misjudgment, and I ask you to support the motion in order that we no longer paint the council into this corner that it is now being put in. I really do suggest, in the nicest possible way, that the Conservative group review the decision, set up the urgency committee, put it in the public arena, and let the public know doing things behind closed doors is not the way modern democracies work, nor should they work. The preclusion and exclusion of members of the public and elected members by whichever method is not good democracy. And I urge members to vote in favour of this motion, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. I just want to check, because since the two Liberal Democrats have commented, are there, apart from myself, are there any other councillors wishing to speak on this motion? No, sorry, Councillor Doyle. Sorry, we've lost time. I'm afraid you will not be able to speak. Thank you. Kevin, is there anybody else other than me? Councillor Heap, unfortunately, no, we have lost time. We have to make business. This was not anticipated, which is fair enough. You will not be called because you are not a member of this committee. Right.
Councillor Jewell has a hand up, Chair.
Again, sorry, Councillor Jewell, you are not a member of this committee. We have lost significant time earlier on. We do not have the time to allow members, non-members of this committee to speak. Certainly, it would not be appropriate. In that case, I will respond to the clearly political statement that Councillor Rowland and Councillor McCann has made. I'd like to correct them on many of the things they say in here, which are actually totally incorrect. Lack of information. Well, I'll remind Councillor McCann and Councillor Rowland that you have your leader on the urgency committee. She is fully briefed. She has been given, she's been told that she could brief her group on what goes on. It's something I do to my group. So I'm amazed that the leader of your group doesn't keep you abreast of what's going on, but that's entirely up to you. The lack of information, well, if you go to pages on here, you go back to pages 55 onwards, there is a lot of information there, including financial information that is in the public domain. If you were on the Leisure Services Committee, you would have seen exactly the same pages, and that was in the public domain. The whole principle is each of the spending committees, the three of them, have the urgency committee minutes there to discuss and debate, and so will the full council. So to say that is not available is utter rubbish. Every single councillor is covered by all those councils, and they have full disclosure there. So, you know, you really are not talking, well, you're talking nonsense, basically.
Mr. Chairman, a point of personal explanation.
I'm sorry, Councillor Jewell, you are not a member of this committee, and I do want to make business, and I do want to get to the end of this motion. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to call you to speak.
I believe standing orders allow me to make a point of personal explanation. Which
well, let me consult with Deborah.
I believe they do.
Right, okay, thank you. I stand corrected.
That's okay. I'd just like to bring up the point that you've just made, that you're virtually accusing me of not passing on information about the meetings. We've had this discussion every time there's been an urgency meeting, and I have explained that I speak to my group the same as you do, but they don't get the papers in the same way as we do for normal council meetings. So on that point, I would ask you to retract that statement, please.
Okay, I will retract the statement that you do speak to them, but I will not retract the statement that that does not match the lack of information and accountability. So you do speak, but clearly suggesting that your group has got lack of information and accountability. So I do want to move on because the other comment that Councillor McCann made was talking about regular meetings. They aren't regular meetings, they're ad hoc meetings, and they usually are created for a single item, a specific item. They're not for making decisions. The only decision that's actually been made so far was the survey, and that was extensively trialed as well. So for the fact is, what you're saying, present lack of information accountability, wrong. You've got it here, you've had it in leisure services, you've had it in planning, you will have it in full council. So that's wrong. Your ad hoc is wrong. So absolutely, I cannot support this, which is clearly a political move, which is to be expected, bearing in mind the newsletters we've seen recently as well. Thank you, Deborah. So if there's no other people who wish to speak, can I now go to the vote? All those in favour of the motion, please show.
The proposer has got the right to return.
Sorry, thank you. Councillor Rowland, you have the right to reply. Apologies. Much as I'm enjoying your silence, Beth, you're muted.
Keith, I take offence at the remark that I'm speaking rubbish. What I'm saying and what I'm telling this council is what I believe to be the truth. You have made several accusations tonight that councillors know what's going on, but actually the Labour group, unless someone has told them, have no idea, and they are both relatively new councillors, and need to be able to really join up the dots to find out. You designed the meetings to be held every month, the S&R meetings. That's in the minutes of the S&R meeting. So please don't accuse me of speaking rubbish. The concern from this group, from the group that I work with, is that most members are excluded from the urgency committee as they receive no paperwork directly. They don't believe they're part of the process. They have no part in the decision making until maybe very late. And this is a serious problem because we all have responsibility for running the council with financial probity. We're accountable to the electorate, and yet they are being excluded too from these secret meetings that are being held. Not getting agendas in advance by the proper channels means that members cannot contribute to find solutions to the problem. The minutes and everything don't come out in a timely manner. We need them in a proper manner. The purpose of the urgency committee should be when a one-off urgent decision is required to support the clerk of the council who is unable to make a decision without reference to the council, for instance, delaying a payment to the Inland Revenue, to support her, to enable her to do the job until the next meeting. It is abundantly clear to the residents that we've got financial problems. I'm not quite sure why we're hiding them in the urgency committee. I am really upset at your tone tonight. We're trying to work with you to get things done in a proper manner, and you refute everything that we say. Also surprising that your group are totally silent on it.
Right, thank you, Councillor Rowland. Can I please now move to the vote? All those in favour of the motion, please show. Okay, can I have the hands down, please? All those against the motion, please show. Can I have the hands down, please? Thank you. And all those who wish to abstain, please show. Okay, Linda, result?
So the motion wasn't carried. It was
okay, so the motion
2
is
votes for and 6 votes against.
Thank you. So can we now move back to the agenda? And I do apologise to Councillor Doyle and Councillor Jewell, etc., who wanted to speak, but I think you understand why that's not going to be possible now. Item 8A.
I shall be telling the press why.
Excuse me, Councillor Doyle. Thank you. 8A, please. Report to receive report SR 2220. Deborah?
Right, in terms of, this is on page 7 of your agenda, report number 2220. You can see that in terms of expenditure, but 2 of the budgets are under 58%, which is sort of how we measure it monthly. That's affiliation fees and capital and loans budgets. I can tell you the staff are working very hard to try and keep expenditure down. On the income side, furlough income in respect of staff whose pay is allocated to central costs has gone in there. The other income is from interest payments on temporary investments and costs charged to TCMI for providing them with an admin service and space in the office. At the Oakwood Centre, the letting income for the year to the end of October is £13,460, which is 6.7% of the budget, the original budget that is, unfortunately. The income figures also include rent for the police office and the catering concession payments. And overall, up to the end of October, that the committee has been allocated £31,346 worth of furlough payments from the government.
Thank you, Deborah, and I'm pleased to see the furlough information coming in here, not just as the secret meetings. Any questions on or comments to Deborah on the numbers? Please raise your hand. Councillor McCann, please. We can't hear you, Councillor McCann, please.
Okay, thank you. Can the clerk or the finance officer explain to the council exactly how much money we are off budget in total, please?
I can't do that at the moment with the information I've got here. No, sorry.
Can she estimate it, please?
Probably not.
Can you estimate it, please?
Councillor McCann, I think
No,
you're being
I don't think I
very
can.
unreasonable,
This
asking Deborah to do things on the fly. That is being very, very unreasonable, and it's not showing the town clerk due respect.
Excuse
Unless
me,
Deborah
Chair.
wants to try.
Excuse me, Chair. The information has been available at the last resources meeting that we have had an income shortfall for each of the last 5 months. That is the figure that I am asking her. It is public information. It is information that should readily be available from the agendas. The clerk should have that information available. I'd be more surprised if she doesn't have the information, which would be actually more the point.
I understand. Wait, hang on a sec, Deborah. I understand, but we do have that information on page 60, which is the urgency, the secret urgency committee minutes that are there in the public. We've got it on page 60. We'll discuss it when we get to page 60. At the moment, we are discussing agenda item 8A, which is the page 7. So please, can you hold your question?
Sorry, Chair. Well, hold on a minute. I'm asking a question on the agenda item, Chair. You can't bounce me to another agenda item later. I'm asking a question on the agenda item which is before us. That needs to be answered, Chair. Don't bounce me to another place. I'm asking a question. The officers have the information. Can she please give me the answer? Thank you, Chair.
Can I just say that in putting together information about a possible extension of the loans, I have got a revised budget estimate figure, but it's not necessarily what the outturn will be. It's based on some understanding that might change depending on what tier we're in. But at the moment, it looks like we will underspend by £138,000, but our income is under by £338,000. But then when you add the furlough in, that becomes slightly different. But I can't tell you exactly because I don't know where we're going with COVID and with tiers and who's going to be allowed to be open and things like that. That is quite a negative. We've chosen a negative amount of opportunity to get income in to provide that information.
Right, can I move on? Any other questions?
Thank you for that. I've asked one question. It's budget information. I want to ask another. Because
well,
so what you're saying is we have an excess.
Please,
at the moment,
Councillor McCann, please, can I see if somebody else has a question? You have monopolised the questions in this agenda so far. Let's see if somebody else has any questions.
I'm asking a question on the agenda.
Excuse me, Councillor McCann.
I'm asking a question on the agenda.
Excuse me, Councillor McCann. Don't talk over me. Let's see if somebody else wants to have a question, and then I'll come back to you. Please allow other. You have spent a lot of time about councillors not being able to participate. So please allow any other councillor, if they wish, they may not. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, Councillor Chadwick.
I was just going to ask, actually, as regards the Oakwood Centre income, discussions regarding theatre agreement and that kind of thing, does that imply that there could be some further payments or are they, you know, total losses because certain events didn't happen and that sort of thing?
Well, no, they're just people can't come here and do the things they used to do unless they're in. Well, we may be in a tier where we have a group of 6, so we're probably going to be able to be open at the Oakwood Centre and the halls, but you've still got to obey the rule of 6. It looks like we haven't got the full information and we don't know what tier we're going to be in at the moment. So that's our problem. The problem with dealing with the budget is I haven't got, you know, a ball to explain it all.
You've got lots of balls, they could all come down in different ways.
I hope not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other person before I go back to Councillor McCann who wants to speak? Okay, Councillor McCann, you're on again.
Thank you. Am I going to be limited to 1 or 2 questions, or shall I wait and see? That'd be interesting. The reason for asking the information, okay. The reason for asking the information on item 8, budget control, it seems not an unreasonable place to ask where we are at the minute and exercise the officer's judgment on where they think we might be. But bearing in mind, we're just halfway through this second lockdown, I do understand that the officers will find it particularly difficult to judge where we may end up.
Mm.
But can the officers assure me and the public that every step will be taken to save money where reasonable it could be expected, and that any monies that is spent is actually absolutely necessary until the full light of the potential financial issues that are laying before us are more clearer, because we have to set the budget in only a matter of weeks from now, and that will require some consideration and some thought, and hopefully, maybe a little bit over expecting, some inclusion in the budget process by the ruling group to non-Conservatives, in order that we can come together as a council and explain to the public why there may be necessary such large increases, or if not large increases, at least a way how we can get our finances back to some sort of reasonable level. Deborah.
Yes, I mean, I can assure you that we're doing everything we can to not spend money. But some things we have to spend money on because we need paper, for example.
I get it. Absolutely.
But yes, I think, you know, the fact that I think we're probably going to save about £38,000 in expenditure. I can't promise that, but that's what it looks like at the moment. That we will get some income, and we have got some furlough, and we have just about everybody on furlough at the moment, apart from 5 members of staff, if you include Brian Fennelly, the TCMI manager. All the other staff are coming in, perhaps doing 2 hours a day or 8 hours a week. That's the way we're trying to organise it, so that we can get in as much furlough income as we can, because we know that will help us going forward as well, in terms of replacing what we've lost from leisure services and from the Oakwood Centre and the halls.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, do we have to vote to receive, or just we receive? Deborah, please.
You can just receive it.
Thank you. So we'll move on to 8B, payments. To approve the following payments as in 8B, pages 8 onwards. Any questions on that one, on those individuals? If not, I'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour, please show by raising your hand. Okay, can you all hands down, please? All hands down, please. Thank you. All those against the payment, please show. No, all those abstaining, please show. Linda, the results, please. You're muted.
That was 7-4 and 1 abstention.
Thank you. So the final one is on this bit, 8C, to receive the report of the internal auditors, Appendix 8C. Deborah, I don't know whether you want to draw our attention to anything in there.
I just wanted to, I hope everybody has had a chance to read it. It's quite a long report this time. In terms of recommendations, so they're on the bottom, at the bottom of page 14. They're recommending that our website be brought up to date to meet the requirements of the Transparency Code. And I believe that we have had to put a note on that about PDFs that we put on there that people can't translate back if they've got some difficulty, and that we can provide those if people contact us. We can provide that to them separately. The final version of the minutes of council meetings to be uploaded, well, we're waiting for those to be approved at the next council meeting. There's 2 lots of minutes, and well, there'll be 3 lots of minutes by then. And the tender document and contract information has been brought up to date. In addition, the risk assessment is being updated on the impact on the council's, well, it has been updated on the impact on council's financial security, and we're just looking at a few other risks and how to address those related to COVID as well. But otherwise, I think we have covered everything that we were required to.
So just a summary, Deborah, the tender document and contract is done. The version of minutes of council are just waiting for council to sign off.
They're waiting to be approved and
done.
signed, yes.
What about the first bullet, all items of expenditure? What's the target date to get that?
Sorry,
done?
where's that? Sorry. Oh,
the first bullet. All items of expenditure to be recorded above £500.
Oh yes, no, we do that already. It's just that we hadn't loaded those up for some time.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Right. So any questions for Deborah on that? Or
Councillor Rowland has a hand up, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland, please.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Kevin. On page 13, the auditors include a sentence which says the use of the urgency committee, and please note, which will meet at least monthly to review and assess the council's financial position for 2021 and 21-22. Could someone please explain urgency to me, because it doesn't fit in with the definition in the dictionary.
I think we'd have to ask the auditors on that. We don't, we're not the auditors, we're not the authors of this report. We'd have to ask them. You can't expect Deborah or I to comment on that, I'm afraid. Thank you. Any other questions on it? Otherwise, we'll just receive the report. Thank you very much. So that's received. Item 9A, the Oakwood Centre, SR 2320. Kevin, I guess that's you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a relatively brief report. Just to note, the centre has been closed from the 5th of November under the new lockdown rules, but we have managed to accommodate blood donor sessions as we had done previously. The council offices remain closed with staff working mostly from home where possible. Some staff coming in to the offices, and we've got measures in place to ensure that's a safe environment. Bookings and room hire remains limited. We are keeping in touch with clients and trying to accommodate as much as possible, and obviously will be going forwards when we come out of this bit. We're waiting to see what the rules are later this week, and we're keeping in contact with our regular hirers to do as much as we possibly can. There's a rather crude income comparison there in the box, which is just for illustrative purposes, really, just to show bookings income for the period against last year, which just for information gives a sort of quick snapshot of what that looks like. The roof repairs that was previously agreed funding for have started. They've been slightly hampered by the poor weather, but they are progressing where possible, and the maintenance team are carrying that out. Obviously, they've addressed the most obvious and worst areas first, and they're continuing with that. And there is a proposal, a recommendation rather, on this last paragraph there regarding COVID vaccination. And there's a proposal that the officers make initial inquiries to local healthcare providers with a view to using the council's venues for the rollout of a COVID vaccine programme when that happens, and whatever the arrangements may be for that in terms of fees charged, etc., can come back to the committee. But it was just a proposal that we explore that where possible, because we're aware that there's likely to be a need, and that actually our venues would be well suited to that, provided that's not having a knock on with bookings we might have. But actually there's a potential there that we could do some good and possibly get some income. So that's a recommendation.
Okay, any questions? Councillor McCann, please.
Okay, thank you. I read the report with interest. It's a shame that our income is 1/5 of what it was last year, but it's completely understandable. I would be more than happy to have any of our venues used during the pandemic by the healthcare providers, if they are going to be, whether it's even just for parking their vehicles while they're vaccinating our members of our community. I would be even happier if we were to waiver any costs for the use of it. That I think it would seem a bit churlish to actually charge them for using our community facilities while they're vaccinating and protecting our community. I don't know what members of the ruling group think, but I would be more than happy to turn around and waiver any costs. And I'm sure other members would be delighted if it's deemed suitable. What do other members think?
Deborah, would you like to comment on Councillor McCann's waiver? Because you and I have talked about this.
I think Councillor Anderson has a hand up and may have an inside track on that.
Yes. Sorry, Councillor Anderson. You're on.
Hi, thank you. So whilst I agree, I don't want to be churlish about it, but there is a large amount of money being pumped from NHSE and NHSI to find venues to do this. So the biggest hub in our locality is going to be the Majeski Stadium. So that is getting, I can't tell you how much that's, it's getting some payment for doing that. So whilst I'm saying we don't need to do that, I think this is exploratory conversations with our healthcare providers about what they need, and they will be expecting to pay for venues. So, it's up to us what we do with that, but we may not even be used. The over 60s will be done in GP practices, and the under 50s will be done in a hub, which is called a pod, which will be the Majeski. It's only that little bit in between. And if the doctor's surgeries were to come out to community venues like ours, then that's a conversation that Deborah needs to have in the first instance around, what's the need, and then equally, if the GPs are told to go out to a venue, they will be given money to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. It's always nice to have an expert there.
That's all I've been doing all day, sorting out vaccinations. Trust me, I know about this.
Well, and now I know where I've got to go, being over 60.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any other questions?
I'm in front of the queue for you, though, because I go into the third group.
Well, the 18 to 20-year-olds. Anyway, right, if there's no more questions on this report, we've got two recommendations. If there's no disagreement, I'd like to take them together. Recommendation 1 is members note the information contained in the report, and recommendation 2 is members consider the proposal to make initial inquiries to local healthcare providers with a view to utilising the council's venues in the rollout of the COVID vaccination programme. So all those in favour, please put your hands up, please, now. Can you take all the hands down, please, Kevin? All those against the recommendation, please show. Okay, all those who wish to abstain, please show. And the result is, Linda?
That was 8 voted for.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Item 10.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry,
Chairman.
8B. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Deborah.
9B. This was something that was requested at the last meeting of the Strategy and Resources Committee. So you'll see under 9B, I can tell you that the Woodley Business Club, for use at the centre for its annual fair and meetings relating to the arrangements for the fair, they were, it was agreed by this committee that they have that free of charge. And also the committee agreed for the Community Youth Partnership to use the theatre and some breakout rooms for the conference it held on addressing anxiety for parents and practitioners. That was a couple of years ago. It might be longer, I can't really remember anymore. During the pandemic, we've also provided rooms free of charge to Citizens Advice. That's for people who aren't online or haven't got a phone and need to speak to someone in person. And we also, and I think we've done this right from the beginning, as councillors who've been on the council for longer know, regular hirers are given a small discount if they are regular. So we like to keep hold of people.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to take any questions on that because it was an answer to a previous question. Move on to item 10, Personnel Subcommittee, to note the SR 2420 of the Personnel Subcommittee meeting. Is that you, Deborah?
It's Councillor Anderson.
Oh, sorry, Juliet.
Hi, so it's just to note that we have asked that the council, that the officers review everything in terms of job descriptions, so that we have done a proper review of what everybody's jobs are, what capacity there might be, what opportunities there are for moving pieces of work around. And we've done a really thorough job looking at that. And thank you to the officers for doing that. And now we are absolutely clear that we need to recruit to this committee officers post when Linda leaves in February, because there is not enough capacity or expertise amongst the other individuals to fulfill that post. However, we have discussed upskilling over the next year or so, and we will do some of that to ensure that there is some opportunity for succession planning. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not intending to take any questions on this, being a personnel matter. I would like to put on record on behalf of all councillors on the amazing, fantastic work that Linda has done over the many years that she's served this council. She has been a shining light in management. I don't know how she does it. It's probably one of the most boring jobs, apart from on the planning committee, one of the most boring jobs to do, but she does it brilliantly and never complain. Well, sometimes, but no, she never complains whatsoever. So can we please put on record, Linda, if you can, the committee and the councils, thank you for all the work that you've done. Right, moving on. Item 11. Investments Working Party, which is on page 19. I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask actually Deborah to cover this, this item. All I'll say is we had a very good meeting with Rathbones on it. There was some good probing questions from all councillors, and Councillor Rowland brought her experience to bear on this meeting as well. So, Deborah, if you could just say a few words on the investment and then introduce the draft Treasury.
Yes, I mean, just to say that, oh, sorry, I didn't expect to have to do this.
Okay.
It's all right.
Deborah, I'll take
I
it.
think
I'll take
sorry,
it. Don't worry. Sorry.
I wrote the
shouldn't have
minutes.
sprung on you.
I
shouldn't have sprung. Basically, bottom line is that the investments are holding up remarkably well under the current situation. I was surprised, and we're still well on track to hit our target when the investments need to be cashed in to pay off the loans on the Oakwood Centre.
And there was a discussion, wasn't there, about whether the council needed to carry on putting the 80,000 in each year, or whether we could just let it creep up to 2 million. And there was a decision that we would carry on allocating, if at all possible, to that.
Yes, the rationale being that even though we've shifted the ratio between high risk and low risk, so that we've got quite a high proportion of our investments now in very low risk, things can still go wrong. And we thought it was prudent to continue paying. We're almost at the finishing line on this huge loan, ambitious loan. And the Working Party did not want to put anything at risk at all. Then we went on to, we did talk about Brexit to see what impact it would have. That was quite interesting. But it was saying that it was actually, any impact had been priced into the market. We talked around the fact that the portfolio had not achieved the target increase. And we talked around the reasons for that. And then we moved into the draft Treasury management, which you've got as a separate document that we need to basically review and accept or recommend it up to council. So if there's any questions or comments, okay, Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I believe it was Alan Clifford who first suggested the investment strategy some 20 years ago, that we have an ethical policy for investments. And that has proven to be far-sighted and extremely prudent. And I think it's now time that this council looks to the future again and starts to think about not just ethical investments, but green investments. We have declared ourselves supporters of the Climate Change Emergency Programme, and we're green for this and green for that. While it may be a little late to adjust any of the guilds or monies invested in this item, it's not actually too late, but it may be a little bit more difficult. We should be instructing the officers and the people who are investing the public's money to support processes and systems that support our green credentials. While I do not wish to propose a proposal for this, I'm putting it forward that the ruling group and the officers have a serious discussion with the investors of this income and other existing and future incomes to please bear in mind that we want not just ethical investment, we're now moving towards ethical and green investments, while at the same time being prudent. I think this is nothing more than endorsing the current council's position. And I see this as nothing more than a flag for us to address in the future. But I'd quite like to hear the chairman's view and the officer's view on about how we move this suggestion forward to dovetail our financial policies into our ethical policies as well as our green credentials.
I note your comments, Councillor McCann, and I accept that the next investments working party, when we have it, ought to have it on the agenda. We should ask our investment company Rathbones to prepare a report on the potential financial impact, positive or negative, of such an approach. Because none of us are experts. We might think we are in investment strategies, but I'm certainly not. And it would be only right and proper that we get our investment company to review the suggestion and then a suitable approach, which maybe it's too early for the Oakwood Centre loans, but we will enshrine it for the future. But I don't want to prejudge it at all. I can see Deborah busily writing, so I think she's making a note of that. Any other question? Oh, Councillor Chadwick, sorry.
Yes, on page 20 of the investment working party minutes, item 3 at the top, second sentence, it doesn't finish, the sentence doesn't finish. It was noted that the portfolio...
It doesn't, does it? I just noticed that.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Chadwick. It probably included in the target, included in
the draft Treasury Management Strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the Treasury Management Strategy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
The draft, the Treasury Management System, Councillor Chadwick, has a specific item in there that sets the target.
Yeah.
And we'll look at that in a minute.
All right. And then the other thing I was going to ask was for item I, first paragraph, it says that it's agreed that the information on the year's performance and anticipated increase in portfolio value for 2021 to 22 will be provided by Rathbones following the meeting. Was that done?
Yes, it was, and that's what is included in the draft strategy that the chairman's going on to speak about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the draft Treasury Management Strategy. The document is pretty well as normal as it has been in the past. It's got a fair appendices, which is investment guidance, etc. And the item about the target is on the bottom of page 3. That generally is the one that always changes. And we've got £58,837 is our target for November 2020 to October 2021. Okay, so as I said, the rest of the content is exactly the same as it's been for a very long time, probably back to Councillor Rowland's time as well. Right. Is there any questions on the management strategy at all? If not, I will go to the first recommendation. So the recommendation is that the Strategy and Resources Committee recommend to Council, that's full Council, that the draft Treasury Management Strategy 2021-22 as presented be adopted. That's this document. All those in favour, please raise your hands in the normal way. Thank you. Can you take them down, Kevin, please? All those against, please raise your hand. Right, and all those abstaining, please raise your hand. Councillor McCann, I wasn't quite sure. I was just waiting for you to vote. Linda, what's the answer?
Okay, that was 7-4 and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. So the next bit, Deborah, can you just say about why we have to review the company, investment manager?
Yeah,
company?
every five. Am I muted? No.
Yep.
Every 5 years, the council has reviewed the investment manager stroke company and done that about the same time every year. Sometimes we've done it a little later in the year rather than at the time when we do the draft treasury management strategy. But if I can just, in the appendix, the treasury management strategy. So on page 45 of that, you'll see set out as the things that the committee looked at in terms of whether Rathbones were meeting the items that we wanted them to. And I think that was it was agreed that that the subcommittee recommends that also to the Strategy and Resources Committee.
So I noticed, Councillor Rowland, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment about that. Rathbones have been with us since the beginning of the investment, which, as Tom said, we started when Methuselah was a lad. And it seems a bit daft now to go through a tendering process when we're coming to the end game. You know, we've got better things to do, to be honest, and they have done us proud, I think.
I fully endorse your comments, Councillor Rowland. Anybody else want to speak? Otherwise, I'll move to the recommendation. Okay, now. The recommendation is that Rathbones be engaged as the council's investment advisors for a further 5 years to 2025. All those in favour, please raise your hands in the normal way. Okay, can you take the hands down, please, Kevin? All those against, please show. Okay, all those abstaining, please show. Linda, the result, please.
I had 7 for, none against and no abstentions.
Okay.
I don't know if that's...
Well, that's what you counted.
Yeah,
That's what
okay.
you counted.
Yeah.
Right. So moving on. Community grants, item 12, report 2620 on page 21. Deborah, I don't know if you want to say anything at all on the requests.
I think the only thing I want to draw attention to is the individual one where the grant would be subject to the condition that the event goes ahead.
Thank you. I did read that. Has anybody got any questions on Councillor Rowland?
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to propose that we accept these en bloc in the light of the fact that we've got a huge amount of business to go through, and I assume we've all done our homework reading them.
I have no problem with that proposal. Any objections to that? So please, can we show raising hands to accept them en bloc, please? Right, can you take the hands down, please, Kevin? All those against, please show.
Everyone's voted for.
Okay, but the process is, I have to
Okay.
ask. All right, anybody abstention, please? No. Thank you very much, Linda. That's all gone.
Okay, that was agreed.
All right, so the next item is allotments rent review. Reports 2720, that's you, Kevin, I think.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, the background there describes the rent structure for residents, non-residents, and those in receipt of the state pension, which and those ratios were set, excuse me, by the committee some time ago. The figures in the table there show the income expenditure for 2019-20 and the estimated for 2020-21. The following page shows the rents that have already agreed from January 2021, which were agreed last year because we're a full year in advance in setting the rents for the year. and the proposed rents to be charged there from January 2022, which is the rents we're considering here. The proposed rents shown there are based on an increase in line with the September 2020 RPI, which is historically how we've done it, although we have had the committee's decided variations to that in different circumstances previously. But that's what that figure is based on, which is a percentage raise of 1.1%. What that means in money is a 40 pence per poll increase for a Woodley resident, and a 30 pence per poll per year increase for a Woodley resident pensioner. And there's some comparison charges there as previously, which are just to give a flavour of prices from other town council sites, which show we have managed to keep those rents within the affordable bracket, I would say, in terms of also offering benefit for residents with the higher charge for non-residents. And the recommendation there is to consider the increase of the 1.1%.
So any questions to Kevin on what's being proposed? Councillor Rowland first, please.
Yes, just very quickly. Are all the allotments occupied, and do we still have a waiting list?
Yeah, we do. We've got a bigger waiting list than we've ever had, actually. And so we're at full occupancy, and we've around, it's fluctuating at kind of 60 on the waiting list at the moment. It's been very, very popular over the lockdown period.
Councillor McCann.
That was my question as well.
Okay.
That was my question as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I still think we've got incredible value for money here, and the allotments are being subsidised by all the residents. But I think that's a good investment in those allotments, particularly for some of the other, like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Addington School's got a plot there. We've got beekeepers up there. It's a tremendous community resource, and long may it continue. So we've got the recommendations on page 27 that I'd like to take them together, please. That the members note the contents of the report. The members consider an increase in allotment plot charges from January 2022 of 1.1% to reflect the retail price index at September 2020. Please raise your hands if you agree with it, please. Okay, Kevin, can you take the hands down, please? Can we have all those who are against, please raise their hands? Can we have all those who abstain? Can they raise their hands, please? Linda, the result,
Okay,
please.
that's 7 for and 1 abstention. That's agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item 14. Woodley Bowling Club, Deborah?
Yes, the bowling club's current lease, along with its licence to occupy, comes to an end at the end of April 2021. This summer I met with the trustees to discuss a further lease stroke licence that the club was seeking. In the year, the club actually made a voluntary contribution of £4,160, basically towards the council's costs, actually, because it was only at the very end of the season that some of them were able to use the green for practice. But this report sets out the main terms for both of the lease, for ground rent on which the actual building sits, and the licence, which is for the use of the bowling green. The ground rent is reviewed every 5th year and increased by retail price index, along with a list of requirements for the trustees to adhere to, what the trustees have to adhere to during the period of the agreement. The licence to occupy sets out the arrangements for the use of the green. So they have up to 6 rinks. They can organise to use a 7th rink, and they can allow other organisations to use the green for up to 5 occasions. That's in the current arrangements. And those were agreed not that long ago, in 2014. So the whole point has been to have this latest licence to occupy end at the same time as the ground rent lease. In terms of equality and environmental impacts, it's proposed that a new lease stroke licence require the bowling club to produce and operate under an appropriate equality, equal opportunities policy, and also that the club provides an appropriate environmental policy to support us in our environmental objectives. I don't think there'll be a problem with that. So the recommendation asks the committee to consider a renewal of the lease and licence to occupy, preferably in one document, because that would be much simpler and not as long to read. And for a period of 20 years, that would be till 2041. This year, the licence fee would have been £6,256, and the ground rent, they would have paid £684. So I'm proposing that we take those figures and then increase them when we put them in. Hopefully, if you agree, we put them in the next agreements, that those will increase by retail price index again, if that's agreed. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Deborah. Am I right to say that despite the lack of use because of COVID, they have made a contribution,
Yes.
a significant contribution
Yes.
to the town council?
Yeah, they have.
Okay, thank you. And the £1,500 legal fees, who pays those?
The town council does,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. So Councillor McCann, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Well, I support the work that we do supporting the Bowls Club. When will the equality impact assessment and the other items that the clerk has just mentioned, when will that be made available to members? Is the first question.
Well, it will be one of the requirements. It will be one of the requirements set out in the lease stroke licence.
Yeah, I asked when it will be available for us. It's a condition of use, which means when will we see it?
Well, you'll see it at the same time as the lease is produced for consideration.
Sorry, Chair, perhaps I'm confusing myself. They're going to draft a quality impact assessment and they're going to give it to us. Are you saying that's going to form part of the lease agreement?
No, I'm saying that in the document there will be a requirement for them to produce that to the council and have that operating.
Which is my original question. When will we have that as a document from them?
I don't know.
1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months?
I don't know how long it will
ask?
take. I don't know how long it will take the lawyers to do that. So we will probably engage Shared Legal Solutions because they're quite competitive in price. I don't know what their work load is. I haven't inquired about that yet.
Okay. And the second question I have is, how financially viable is the bowling club itself? In other words, does it have a turnover of, for example, £50,000 a year, £70,000 a year, £20,000 a year? How much? Do you see my point?
Yeah, I don't have that information.
None of that information is here.
No.
And
should we have that information if we're going to be? Sorry.
I was just going to say, Councillor McCann, no, we wouldn't be expected to have that information. We've never had that information, or never looked at that information for probably the last 20 years under all administrations. I can see Councillor Rowland actually nodding. I would suggest that if you are interested in that sense, then you should address it to the bowling club. We will have a contract with them when it's agreed, and then it's up to them to satisfy the contract. I think it would be wrong for us to start assessing everybody who has a contract or uses our facilities, whether they're financially viable. You know, if they, I'm sure the contract will have clauses that will say that if they are no longer financially viable, they lose the contract, which is what you would normally expect, exactly in the same way as we were talking about Brambag. Thank you. Councillor Chadwick.
Actually, just about that query, the accounts could be held by the Charity Commission or possibly on the bowling club's website, but that wasn't what I was going to ask. I was just going to ask why you're going for a period of 20 years for the new lease when the previous lease was 30 years.
Because that's what the club, what the trustees of the bowling club asked for.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay. If there's no other questions, can I move to the recommendations, please? Again, I'd like to take them en bloc. The first recommendation that members note the contents of the report. The second recommendation that members consider a renewal of the lease and license for the use of the land and bowling green on similar terms as proposed in the report, and including the requirement for equality and environmental policies for a period of 20 years from 1st of May 2021 to 31st of April 2041. Please, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Kevin, can you take them down, please? All those against, please raise your hands. All those abstaining, please raise your hands. And Linda, the result, please.
That was 8-4, so it's agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 15, which again is answering a question from a previous meeting. Deborah, would you like to explain?
Yes, sorry. This is information that I was asked to establish by a few councillors on a committee, on the last committee meeting, full committee meeting. And I wrote to NALC, the National Association of Local Councils, of which the council is a member, to seek some information about that. And what I asked them was whether they could establish whether or not individual councillors would be liable should the council run out of funds. And their response to me was, the town council is a body corporate, and therefore the financial consequences of its activities are those of the council and not individual councillors. I thought,
thank you, Deborah. I'm not
relieved about that.
Can I ask you to send that statement to all councillors?
Yes, and what I was just going to say is that actually they went on to describe two situations where there could be financial consequences for individual councils. So I thought I would send this round to all councils. It's actually just interesting
for
people to have. I'll do that tomorrow. Item
16, which is the Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative. Right, it's on page 30 onwards. So this is to receive, isn't it? Yes, to receive. Both Councillor Rowland and myself were there. So I don't know whether there's any questions. Otherwise, I would like to move on. Okay, so consider that received, Deborah. Project schedule. That's Kevin. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, some key items to note. The Green Flag Award, which is a constant on there, is an ongoing project. Just delighted to say, actually, that we've achieved Green Flag Award status for the park again, for Woodford Park again this year. We've increased the score on last year, which was an increase on the score from the year before, which just shows further improvement under the pretty wide-reaching criteria under that scheme, and we're still the only park in Wokingham Borough to have achieved and maintained that. A couple of other things to note, projects that are still on there. The maintenance and grounds maintenance depot project is very nearly complete. We're now just looking at completion of some concreting of the ground area of the yard and some in-house internal works of the office space and workshop space in the existing grounds building. The rest of it is actually complete, and that's already making a massive difference for both of those teams. Woodford Park play area, just to note that the tender submission date is the 18th of December, after which there'll be a period of council and public review and consultation when we look at what proposals we get in, which I think are going to be quite varied and really interesting to look at, actually. So again, it's another positive project in an otherwise not that positive year. And another item to note is the town centre garden. The Leisure Services Committee last week approved the basic planting plan, which the grounds team are now looking at and working up. We're talking to Woking Borough Council about the tree works there, and proposals for seating will come back at a later date for consultation and consideration at the committee. I haven't gone through all the items there, but if there's any questions.
Any questions, Councillor McCann?
Councillor McCann.
Yeah, it's on the very last item, tree garden update, future plans. Can you just remind me, have we set a budget for any seating and other things? And will the council's corporate liability cover any potential costs should anything happen in the future, bearing in mind this will be the council's property on highways land run by a town centre management team?
Yeah, I think I can answer that. An allocation of funding from Section 106 money was made at the Leisure Services Committee for the planting scheme. No money has been allocated as yet for the seating because we haven't brought a proposal forward for what that might be and how much that might cost. So that's kind of a separate but related project in itself. In terms of liability, in terms of any work and volunteer work and things like that going on, the town council does have liability insurance which covers that element. The site itself remains Highways property, and ultimately Woking and Borough Council retain liability for that as part of the highway, and the same as the other areas in the town centre.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I did specifically ask about if we're going to be spending the council's money, putting in chairs and or other things, what is the council's corporate insurance, public liability cover for that? Have you looked at that as a possible issue for the future?
Yes, in terms of insurance, sorry, I didn't realise that's what you were referring to. Yes, it would be covered under the council's public liability insurance.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. One thing actually for the future, Kevin, I think it would be helpful if you just add something into your report that talks about the ownership of each of these projects, i.e., you know, is it Leisure Services, is it SNR, etc. So anybody reading it knows who's making the decisions, which committee is making the decisions.
Yeah,
it just needs the one word, that's all. Thank you. That's to note. So Deborah, advice please. Do we have to vote on that? Because it's note, not review.
No, it's just received.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 18, which is the council meeting dates, please. I don't think there's any major changes, is there, Deborah, here?
No, it's following a similar format to this year, I believe, isn't it? Linda's a person who puts all this
Sorry.
together.
Councillor McCann, you have your hand up. We can't hear you. Silence is golden, but not in this case.
Okay, is that better? Thank you. Bearing in mind the urgency committee has met every month for the last couple of months, wouldn't it be prudent now to put in some space in the diary for next year, some urgency meetings, so that members could at least have some sort of idea if the meeting is going to be meeting, it's going to be meeting monthly, it can at least be diaried in. Where at the minute it's ad hoc, as the leader of the council has said, and members aren't always aware that there's actually a meeting going to be in.
Councillor McCann, I don't think your data of saying it's met every month is correct. It's meant twice in November, for instance, with specific items. So one of those was to do with the consultation and survey, single item agenda. So I think it would be inappropriate to put in regular meetings when they're not going to be required, because we do hope by the time we get to January 2022, we won't be in the pandemic. We might be, but I think we're all going to be in the deep doo-doos if we are. So the approach, which is we have those meetings when we have specific items we need to review, will continue. So move on to vote on the proposed schedule of meetings, please. Can I see hands up, raise hands for approval? Evan, can you take the hands down, please? All those against, please show. Okay, all those abstaining, please show. And the result, Linda? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, that was 6 for and 1 abstention. So that's agreed.
Thank you. Moving on, item 19, the Working on Borough Council consultation on members' code of conduct. You've got on page 38, appendix 19. Most of these are actually, in fact, all of these have come out of the latest report from the Committee on Standards in Public Life, or whatever the name is. And the Working Borough Council are looking to incorporate the recommendations into their code of conduct. You might ask yourself the question, what's that to do with us? But actually, we have to abide by these types of code of conducts as well. I'll draw your attention to one item, which is best practice 9 on page 40, is that in Wokingham, compared to any other borough in the whole of Berkshire, has an extra concept, I'll call it, or a route, a process compared to anybody else. They call it an informal result. So what that means is that a breach has been proved, but if it goes down the informal route, nobody knows about it, which seems to be unfair on the person who is the victim of the code of conduct complaint, and the person making the allegations has been found guilty. They get away with it scot-free. All they need to do is just write a letter, and I know this has happened on both Liberal Democrat side. It's recently happened to me, which is why I know all about it. And that's a real, to me, that's a real nonsense. And when you consider nobody else, not a single council in Berkshire has that option, I think we shouldn't be doing it. So my recommendation, because it is asking for a choice, and I'll put it out proposal, that we do accept these, but the so item 3, removing the informal route from the code of conduct so that all complaints are resolved by a formal investigation. So if you are wronged by a councillor and they have been found guilty, they can't get away with it, and the wrong is still out there in the public domain, and you have no right, because that ruling is confidential. So you have no right to put it out to say, do you know what, I was wronged and the Standards Committee found so. So I'll get off my soapbox there. Any questions? Tom McCann.
Thank you, Chair. I have recently been doing some homework on the Code of Conduct policies and the 7 principles. I'll cast members' memory back to the coalition agreement in 2010. It was then that the Liberal Democrats led the challenge to removing the legislation that this organisation and these functions were based on. It was removed as a statutory regulator because of its consistent and persistent misuse by unscrupulous councillors and sometimes unscrupulous officers' attempts to stop whistleblowing and other misdeeds within organisations. It is contrary to Conservative national policy that this actually exists. It is contrary to Lib Dem national policy that these organisations actually pretend to have any legitimacy. There is no legal basis. If you partake of this, it is a voluntary thing. They have no power to remove you. They have no power to do anything to you. It is a completely defunct, disreputable and disapproved organisation.
So Councillor McCann, Councillor McCann, please, I'm sorry to interject.
Sorry, I'm speaking.
But you are making a speech on national matters. What we have in front of us, please, Councillor McCann. I know it wastes time and maybe that's your objective, but we have in front of us a consultation and we need to respond to this consultation. The history was very interesting, but it's not germane to this agenda item. So if you have anything to say about this consultation, please let us know. Do you agree on 9 that we do item 3 as a town council we recommend? But please, no more speeches. Can we just get on with the matter in hand? Please.
Thank you, Chair. I think members should ignore this document. It is a complete and utterly useless. It is nothing but a facade covering scars that local government should be ashamed of. Members should not take part in this organisation. They should not be making recommendations for a code of conduct that has no authority. It has no power. Members should ignore it. They should reject all the items in it, all the suggestions in it, and take no part in it. It is relevant to the document we have in front of us. I was setting the historical scene for members who are not aware that there is no legal basis, there's no legal requirement.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Councillor McCann, I'm going to stop you there. You have said that at least 5 times. Please, can you now stop? Councillor Rowland, your turn.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask for a point of clarification on 9? Are you suggesting that we agree to having any complaints in the public domain? And having sat on this committee for a number of years, it is quite a frustrating place to be and to appear before.
No, a very simple answer, Councillor Rowland, is that no, absolutely not. What I'm saying is the reverse. The informal route means that when somebody's found guilty of a breach of the code of conduct, they write a letter and it
Oh, yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
get into
yeah.
the public domain.
Yeah.
So I think I am, and certainly your colleagues on the Borough Council and myself are absolutely joined at the hip on this particular one. So that
Thank
clarify?
you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Otherwise, I'm going to go to the vote. The vote is to accept or not. Our consultation response is that we find the proposals acceptable to us, and for best practice 9, we vote for number 3, which is remove the informal route. If you're found guilty, then you have to be made public. All those in favour, please raise hands. Thank you. Can you take the hands down, please, Kevin? All those against, please show. Thank you. All those abstaining, please show. Linda, the result, please.
Okay, that was 7 for and 1 against, so that's agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item 20, which is community infrastructure levy. To note that the September sale proportion report identifies potential funds of 71,778, and B, to note that we've received payments of 37,778 in October, and we are expecting another 40,723. I don't intend to take any questions on that. It is just to note. So we need to move on now. Item 21. The minutes of the Borough Parish Liaison Forum, page 42. There, I note, unfortunately, we didn't have a member of Woodley Council, Town Council there. Councillor Nagra, I note, did send his apologies. Kevin and I did a dog and pony show about our climate emergency plan, which went down very, very well. And it highlighted the advanced thinking of this council across all parties on the climate emergency. I think they were well impressed on what we presented, and we were held up by Councillor Gregor Murray, who's the Climate Emergency Executive Member, as a leading light. And we did get quite a few questions from other parish councils wanting to understand some of the things we've taken. We have since redone the same dog and pony show at the meeting of the Borough Climate Emergency Working Party, and it went down even better, I think, there. Kevin, do you want to comment on that aspect?
Yeah, only that it was there seemed to be quite a bit of interest, and I think if what we're doing can spark a bit more conversation and a bit more linking up with the parishes and with the borough, then yeah, that's all good stuff.
So if there's any questions, difficult to answer because our reps weren't there. Otherwise, Councillor Rowland.
Councillor Rowland.
You've got your hand up, Councillor Rowland.
You will. I'm sure you'll be able to answer this, though, Keith. We have a substitute councillor. Is there a process for telling the substitute councillor that the main appointee isn't going so that he can attend?
I'll refer that to Deborah.
Yeah. Can I just say that I do, as soon as I receive the invitation, I send it to Councillor Nagra, and he usually lets me know whether he's going or not. And I don't think he did on this time, because I know, Councillor McCann, you've been at least once as the deputy, haven't you, to this meeting, to the Borough Parish Liaison Forum.
Okay, so it does highlight for all of us, all councillors, if you're attending a meeting outside of the town council and there is a substitute, you must let Deborah know, because it's not fair on the substitute. If they don't know about it, they can't come. And I agree, I've seen Councillor McCann's name on the agendas. So that was to note. Future agenda items, item 22. Do we have any future agenda items? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I'd like a green investment strategy to be on the future agenda for the council. I know we have said earlier on that my points were noted, and I could see some nods from members, but I think we should actually have a specific item where we actually bring this information together in order to help us formulate a strategy. I'm not sure if the Borough Council have a green investment strategy. If they have, it would be interesting to see. And I'm not sure what other local authorities have who have adopted the same policies as this authority. I think that would be quite an important step change. I'm not quite sure how you'll be able to do it between now and the start of the next year, but I would certainly like that to be on the agenda, so we're pushing at officers to start gathering that information so we can formulate a strategy. Thank you.
I note your comment. I think it's a good proposal, but to be honest, our officers at the moment are absolutely stretched dealing with the COVID virus, which I'm sure you understand, and I can't see them freeing up any time, even though it's an important factor, before we're really out of this pandemic. So I think your guess was probably correct that we won't be able to get to it this fiscal year, but I think it's one that needs to be considered. And the point of when that comes up would be when we've had our review with Rathbones, because that would be the core, potentially the core of any investment strategy. Now, some councils, West Berks has got a green company. I know Woking Borough is looking at something similar. I think the Royal Borough has as well, or they're on that way. So it is early days at the moment for this very important topic. And whilst I always like us to be ahead of the game, they have hundreds and hundreds of staff to do this sort of thing. We have a very small number, but it's noted. Deborah, I'm sure, has made a note of it, and we need to schedule it in when time permits. Thank you. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on. Deborah, we are now at 9:54. Do we have to have a motion to extend?
If you wish to extend, yep. Yes, you do.
Because we're nearly at the end, I propose that we extend to 10:30 or by the end of the agenda. It's been a long one. Can I have a seconder, please? Yeah, Councillor Wicks or Brindley. All those, can I have a vote? All those in favour, please show. Raise your hand. Okay, can I have the hands down, please, Kevin? All those against, please show. All those abstaining, please show. Councillor McCann, oh, there we are. Just going to ask you haven't voted yet. So the result, please.
7-4 and 1 abstention, so that's agreed.
Thank you. So the next item is publicity and website. Consider items. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask anybody who's got items for publicity or website that they submit them through to Linda, who will make sure they go to the appropriate person. So item 24, 3 minutes of the urgency committee dated on the 5th of October, the 9th of November and the 17th of November to note. So any questions, because you've got two of the people who were there, three of the people. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like some guidance from the clerk as to, is, in her view, the urgency committee meetings contrary to the council's statutory standing orders 29A? If it's not, could she please provide us with a reason why members of this authority can be precluded from the inspection of any document in possession of the council? Thank you.
Councillor McCann, before I ask the town clerk to ask that one, that from memory is about the fourth time you've asked those questions. I will let it go this time, but I can tell you if you try to ask that question, those questions again, having asked them and been answered a number of times, I will not allow the question to go forward. Town clerk, would you like to answer Councillor McCann?
I mean, I read this as a councillor may, for the purpose of his official duties, inspect any document in the possession of the council or the committee. And actually that is what councillors have received in terms of the urgency committee information. They've received the agenda and they've received all the minutes. There's nothing that's been left out.
Thank you.
I have been left out.
Can you read?
I have been left out. I have been precluded. I have been precluded from getting access to the documents that I am legally entitled to inspect for the purposes of my duties. And I have been specifically excluded from that.
So Councillor McCann, can I draw your attention to page 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, right to the end. Those are the documents. So you are saying you've been excluded from the documents. Have you got a special agenda without those pages? I'm sorry, you have not been excluded. It's there in black and white.
With the respect, Chairman, I wasn't asking you. With respect, Chairman, I wasn't asking you. I was asking the clerk, why have I and other members of this council been excluded from receiving those documents? Before they were actually, these are the minutes. I'm asking for the documents that made these documents possible. Why have we been excluded?
They aren't just the minutes, they're the agendas as well, and the papers that came with the agendas.
So there has been no additional.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Councillor McCann.
I have no way of knowing. I'm not
Councillor McCann.
party to that.
Councillor McCann, you have been told by the clerk, and I can confirm it, there has been no additional papers provided to the urgency committee other than what you've got here. You've been told by the clerk, you've been told by me, all right? So please, I'm going to move on. You've had your questions. I have Councillor Chadwick, please.
Yeah, hello, sorry. If we can ask a question on any of these urgency committee meeting minutes, I just wanted to ask about, that's from the agenda pack of the 9th of November, and it's page 60. I'm just a little bit puzzled about the meaning of one or two of the columns. And in particular, there's a column X minus income. And so if that's the fifth column in, say, the number, like the top number 50,061 for
that's last year's income.
Yes.
Yeah.
How has that number 50,061 been computed?
It's been a straight. The finance officer prepared this, so he's done it straight income minus expenditure. Sorry, expenditure minus income.
But the thing is that is not the difference between the third column and
but he's put the precept in there as well. That might be what's made the difference.
Oh, right. Because I just could not follow it. Okay, thanks. And actually, another thing is, so looking at 2020 to 2021,
Yeah.
column marked income, and then there's a column to the right of that. What do those figures mean?
That is the combination, adding up actual income and furlough income, I believe.
So, okay.
Yeah, I will be updating this sheet.
Okay.
I've got so that we've got background information as well about where income and expenditure has come from.
Oh, great. That would help, I think, yes. Because actually, to me, those figures look as if they do equal the column to the left of them, minus £100,000.
Yeah.
May or may not be. So I couldn't sort of.
Yes. So what that is, the precept is also income that comes in, and it's split into 12 months in this case.
Oh, so yes, if when you.
So it's just a way of allocating income. It comes in. We get it in 3 tranches actually. We get, I think we get 10% in April, end of April, and then we get 40%, and then we get another 50% in September.
Oh, right.
So we don't have it sitting in the bank all the time.
No. Oh, I see. Yes, so perhaps when you update it, Deborah, if you could make.
Yeah, I will do. I will be doing that. It's not as helpful as it could be to people.
Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, okay, thanks very much. And if anything that can be done on that bottom line as well. But it actually might more, once the columns are headed well, it might become clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it will be quite different.
Okay.
When we produce it.
Okay.
So maybe Deborah, that an explanatory note on the column, because I know it's always difficult to try and squeeze stuff into an Excel spreadsheet. Just a summary of what each column means and how it's calculated. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
For everyone, rather than trying to squeeze it into a cell, an Excel cell.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions? I'm sorry, Councillor Jewell, I'm not going to be calling you. You're not a member of this committee. We've been going for a very, very long time. Any other questions? Councillor McCann, please.
I have concerns that we're getting this sort of information and it's not in the public arena as we raised earlier in our motion to make the public, or to inform the public as much as possible. It is clear from other members have difficulties fully understanding the way it's being presented. There is concerns about the reason why it's confidential. As far as I'm aware, our income is not confidential. The officers did explain the last time something was confidential in this item, it was only the officers' forecasts that was actually confidential, because they were exercising their judgment. I have concerns that by the time the public find out the potential difficulty that this authority is in, it will be too late for them to do anything. We are literally weeks away from setting the budget. I certainly do not feel confident looking at the information presented for us this evening that this council will be in a position to move forward financially and responsibly in the coming months. I have serious concerns that the council will end up spending its reserves with no strategy or plan to fill this reserve. I have serious concerns about the way the Conservative group are running the organisation. I think that no matter how much the leader of the council dislikes members from scrutinising and questioning and probing, I would urge him to remember it is their statutory requirement of us as an opposition to hold not just the ruling group, but the administration to account and demand the fullest explanations as and when we can. And it is not for him to criticise members seeking to clarify information, irrespective of whether he likes it or doesn't like it. And it's certainly wrong for the chairman to turn around and tell other members of this council who have a legal duty under your own standing orders to attend a meeting and speak at the meeting that he's not going to allow them. This is a shocking disregard of the rules. And I'm disappointed that the administration aren't supporting other members when they have a right to speak at meetings. Just because the chairman says you can't doesn't mean to say the chairman is correct. And if you read and understood your own standing orders, you would find that Carol is perfectly entitled to come here. She's perfectly entitled to speak, and you should never be rude and not allow members of the Liberal Democrat group or the Labour Party or the Independents not to speak. It's an absolute disgrace, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Councillor
Thank you.
McCann,
Good night.
thank you for your usual personal attack. The standing orders does not automatically allow non-committee members to speak. It is at the discretion, you read the rules, it is at the discretion of the chairman. And I had fully intended to take some questions from various people, but unfortunately you have monopolized the time. You have spoken on nearly every single motion, every single agenda item. You've repeated the questions that you repeated, which is fine. You're entitled to do that because you're on the committee, but then do not complain when other people don't get.
That's what's called democracy.
Oh, so
it's called
don't
democracy.
Excuse me, Councillor
That's what it's
McCann.
called.
Councillor McCann, your usual technique of speaking over people doesn't work with me. So on that basis, I'm now calling, we've got through to the end. I'm calling an end to this, a very interesting meeting, debate, a discussion, and a nice history lesson from Councillor McCann. Thank you for everyone's forbearance. It's been a long, long time. Please don't hit the whiskey bottle too hard when you get off this meeting. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
No.